And Ric Flair, you put hard times on this country by taking Dusty Rhodes out. That's hard time.
Rest in peace.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man.
Talk about your songs, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your...
Oh my goodness. We're back. We're back for Hot Tag. It's been way too long, but we are back. And if we're back for Hot Tag, that can only mean one thing. That can only mean that I am joined by the one, the only, Brandi Smith. Brandi, how the heck are you?
I'm good, Jeff. And if it's hot where I am, I hope it's hot where you guys are too, because again, that means it's time for the hot tag.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know for a fact that it's sweltering down there in Georgia. I know that. Like I know that for a fact. So I can't complain too much about New York because it's not terribly bad. It's it's 79 today. So there's probably like what 95, but with heat index like a 105 or something like that.
Yeah, you could probably cook an egg outside right about
Oh,
now.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And
Definitely.
I know our friends across the pond are dealing with some heat too, so they're feeling that pain as well. What I want to do is welcome everyone in, and then we'll get started. We're talking about the one and only Ron Simmons today, so get your dams ready and all that stuff, and we'll have some fun here. Quick programming note, however, tonight, if you join us for SmackDown, we announced this on social media, but I just want to make everyone aware. We will be starting our SmackDown watch along at 7:50. So instead of the normal 7:30 time, we will be at 7:50. So come back, and join us for SmackDown if you'd like. We'd love to have you. But yeah, we're here to talk about Ron Simmons. But first, let me shout out some folks: James Chadwick, Sam, aka Other Mother, Johnny Bates, Melinda Ford, Sean Rousset, Azan White, Hayden Garrett. Let's see who else is here. There we go. So yeah, thank all of you guys for joining. It's Sam's birthday. Well, happy birthday, Sam.
Yes, happy birthday.
Hope you're doing well. Melinda is saying it's 92 where she is. So one thing I want to do, Brandi, before we talk about the man, the myth, the legend that is Ron Simmons, if anyone is new here, I want you to kind of explain how you got into wrestling. For those of you that don't know, Brandi is vision impaired. So Brandi, I just want you to talk a little bit about that and your wrestling fandom.
First of all, I'm happy to hear some old names. I'm so excited to hear some new names as well.
Yeah.
I've been a wrestling fan for as long as I can remember. The first kind of thing I remember is having this old videotape of WrestleMania 5 and just watching it over and over again, and I grew up watching wrestling, being visually impaired, not being able to really tell what was going on the screen, and really getting everything I got from the sound and from the commentary. And it was really a big thing that I did with my dad. We didn't have a lot in common. He didn't really know how to spend time with me because of my visual impairment, but we watched wrestling together. And I know a lot of you wonder, maybe how that was possible, but I did. I did it through listening to the commentary and through listening to the sounds on the screen. That's how I still do it today. And so I just grew up being a fan. Fortunately, in my teenage years, during the Monday Night Wars when it was at its hottest, uh, I really got into it, and I just have not stopped being a fan. As a kid, Hulk Hogan was bigger than life, and Ultimate Warrior. Now I realize what a joke he was, but then he was still a big deal, and uh, you're bigger than life characters. You're Andre the Giant, you're Macho Man Randy Savage, and Miss Elizabeth, who I still consider the first lady of wrestling. So I'm a big fan of classic wrestling. Arn Anderson, big, big, big fan. Love to you, Arn. Mick Foley, who's an excellent storyteller both in and outside of the ring. And if I watched with friends or other people, they would tell me to the best of their ability what they would see on the screen. And so I never let my not being able to see what everybody else could see, I never let that stop me from enjoying this drama that unfolds on a screen in a wrestling ring. I never let that stop me from enjoying it. And even in person, I've been to some live events, even though I obviously can't see what's happening in the ring, but the environment is so much fun. The live music, the sound of the fans, the vibration, from the crowd. It's an experience that you can't compare to anything else.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. And honestly, Azan is one of our newer viewers, and he does. I mean, he supports us in a big way. So shout out Azan. Azan, this isn't going to be it's not an offensive question. So, but he would like to know, like, are you legally blind, or are you completely blind, not able to, no vision at all?
I'm considered totally blind, and you guys can ask me anything. I'm an open book. Pretty much everybody who's listened before knows that. You can ask me anything. I can see light if it's very, very bright, but that's it. But I'm considered totally blind. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. And Azan, he said, is she like Crazy Steve? Crazy Steve is considered legally blind, or just blind. No offense taken, Azan. I think I can speak for Brandi when I say that. Honestly, she cracks jokes sometimes, and it makes me uncomfortable. So, and I mean that in the best possible way, like, because it's like, well, should I laugh, or? But she's gotten on me about that before. So, and of course, go ahead, Brandi.
That's just how I am. It's like you can't have stuff in life and not laugh and get through life, without going crazy sometimes. So you have to laugh, and it's okay to laugh at yourself. Like, look, I'm getting married in September, and my fiance is visually impaired as well. And we both all the time, like, what, you didn't know that door was there? I mean, like, that's just how I am. So you guys can ask me anything. It's cool.
And shout out to Craig. He was in the chat a little earlier. So shout out Craig.
He what? Husband, get back in the chat.
And of course, I'm going to get to this one. At any time that you guys have questions for Brandi, do me a favor, put the hashtag Ask Brandi. That's how I know Bates has been here before. He put hashtag Ask Brandi, and this one's going to make you chuckle a little bit, Brandi. When is that Kimberly hot tag coming?
Look, it's not her I have issues with. You guys know who I have issues with. It's Eva Marie. And that's never happening.
Yeah, that's a whole nother subject for another day. Mike, what's up, Mike? Saying, why are you guys not on camera? Because Mike, we for this show, and we'll eventually be on camera, but for right now,
We'll see what happens.
yeah, we'll see what happens. But Brandi, if you're just tuning in, Brandi is visually impaired. We want to one just kind of just kind of give audio. But two, I want to make sure that Brandi feels comfortable being on camera. Um, and she's battling through some illness right now, so so I just wanted to make sure that she's comfortable. James Chadwick, thank you so much for the very generous super chat saying hot tag is back, baby. Glad to have you back, Brandi.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much.
So
I'm happy to be back with you guys.
Oh, for sure. Listen, I've been waiting, Brandi. I've been waiting. We've been talking about this day for a while, so I'm happy that it's here. Okay, so obviously we're talking about Ron Simmons, and before we get to his foray into professional wrestling, I want to talk about the athlete, just the stellar athlete that he was. So just go ahead and just start at the beginning of just this tremendous athlete.
We're going to talk about some Southeastern Conference football.
There you go.
But first of all, I have to mention one really important moment that really defined Ron's early life. First of all, I have to give a shout out because Ron Simmons is from Warner Robins, Georgia, which is about 30 minutes away from my hometown. So he's a Georgia boy. He's a middle Georgia boy, which is more important. But, really early on in his life, his father left at a really pivotal moment in his life. He remembers, being a kid and, his dad says he's going to the store, be good and he'll be right back. And he remembers seeing the 60s Pontiac go down the road and those taillights go away and they never come back. And he tells this story really interestingly on the Legends with JBL. You guys can look that up on the network. And that was a really defining moment for him. And so he and his siblings were raised a good bit by his grandmother, and she passes away as well. And so the people that he gives a great deal of credit for really helping turn him into the man that he becomes are his grandmother and his coaches, his high school coach at Warner Robins, and the legendary coach Bobby Bowden at Florida State University. When he decides to go there and to play for the Seminoles, which was a big deal because everybody assumed that he's going to go play at Georgia for Coach Vince Dooley, and he's going to be an outstanding player for Georgia. But no, he decides to go south and play for the Seminoles, who is not a winning team at that time. They are not doing well, but Ron Simmons comes on the scene, and he is a big deal on campus.
Yes.
This is a time where they'll grease your palms to get on the football teams. And
no clue what you're talking about, Brandi, at all. Like no clue what that means. There weren't any cars or money being passed out.
There was a car. He gets this car, and he takes the bird off the hood of the car and has his face painted on the hood of the car. So when Ron's coming. When Ron's coming. That's a famous story about Ron being at Florida State. And so he's defensive line, okay? And so he does so well for this team that they end up going to the Orange Bowl twice. He ends up 9th in the Heisman conversation his junior year, which does not happen. This is a quarterback award. This is not a defensive line award whatsoever. And for him to do that is a huge accomplishment. And actually, one game when he goes to the Orange Bowl, he ends up the opposite team. Dr. Death Steve Williams is on the opposite team, who he will later face in his wrestling career. So he becomes an All-American. After his college days, he goes on to the NFL. Once his NFL days are over, he plays for the USFL. Plays with Lex Luger for the Tampa Bay
Bandits.
Yes, thank you. I kept wanting to say Buccaneers, but actually the Bandits were doing better at the time than the Buccaneers were.
Hey, I take offense to that because I'm a Bucs fan. Not really. I don't take offense to it. Legendarily, the coach at that time, a reporter asked the coach, what about the team's execution, and he said he was in favor of it. So that's how bad the Bucs were at that time.
Yeah. I heard that, but he also plays 1 year for the Canadian Football League. But from his time in Florida, Lex Luger had gotten a taste of wrestling, and he calls Ron up and says, "Hey, I think you can do this." Ron famously ends up training with Hiro Matsuda, who, if you guys remember back from when we covered, a little bit of Hulk Hogan's history along with the Macho Man, Hiro Matsuda famously trained Hulk Hogan and broke Hulk Hogan's leg. Luckily, he didn't break Ron's leg because I think Ron might have given him a receipt for that one. But, he was famously trained by Hiro Matsuda. He ends up in the Crockett promotion before it's WCW. And so he goes in and he's on a winning streak. Starting off from the beginning, he wrestles people such as the Koloffs, a young Rodney Anawai, who will later become Yokozuna. He wrestles, Dr. Death Steve Williams. Some of the people that he will later go on and face when he's more well known. And for some reason, whenever I think of Jim Crockett Promotions, they kind of abbreviate it to JCP. And when I think of Tony Schiavone in that jacket with that JCP, I just want to think Tony Schiavone's working for JCPenney or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of looked like a Penny's model back. Somebody that would be in the Penny's catalog, which some of our younger listeners are like, "Hey, what's a Penny's catalog?"
I know, right?
So Brandi, right now, what I have up on the screen is I have him up on the screen as a tag champ with the one and only Teddy Long.
I'm getting there.
I know you're getting there. I'm just letting you know what I got out there. So
he's learning the ropes. He's getting there in a singles career, and they decide to put him together with Butch Reed. And it's important to know at this time that racism is very prevalent in the wrestling industry and also in the South. And so they put him with another African American. They put him in an African American storyline with an African American referee. But they do end up becoming tag champs. And they end up becoming, once things change hands between Crockett and WCW, they do become the first tag champs of WCW. So Butch Reed and and Ron Simmons are champs, but they become one of the coolest tag teams in tag team wrestling history in my book, Doom.
Yes.
And they put them under a mask, and they stay under a mask only for a few months. And I think they could have carried this storyline out much longer, because historically in wrestling, once you're under a mask, it's a big deal, especially in lucha wrestling. Somewhat so in American wrestling. There have been a few famous, American wrestlers under mask, Mr. Wrestling 2, that kind of thing. But so Doom is a pretty big deal. They have a pretty heated rivalry with the Steiners, and there's a pretty famous line. They would rib Butch Reed pretty bad. They were pretty famous for ribbing people, the Steiners were, and so, but they never got any over on Ron Simmons. And so there's a story that Ric Flair goes to Ron one day, and he goes, "Ron, why don't they ever get you?" And he goes, basically, I'm un-F-withable.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can hear him say that. Like I can just hear him in that baritone voice.
Yeah.
Say that.
Yeah. And in my research, I heard that story from a couple different sources, and yeah. So, the Steiners were getting everybody else except for Ron Simmons. And so this is pretty controversial at the time as well, but they put these guys with woman who is at the time Nancy Sullivan, who will later become Nancy Benoit, but it's pretty controversial at the time to have two African American gentlemen put with a white female manager. She eventually drops them, goes to manage the Four Horsemen. They decide to unmask Doom, which I think was a huge mistake. They could have carried that further. They start to turn Ron babyface. He eventually ends up in a feud with his tag team partner, Butch Reed. And so Ron starts his singles run. He starts to have a feud with Lex Luger. He faces Luger for the title at Halloween Havoc. He loses, but then he gets a chance to face Vader at a house show in Baltimore, and he wins the title. Shocks everybody.
Yes.
Shocks everybody. And he is the first recognized African-American male to win a heavyweight championship in wrestling history. I say first recognized because you have, Bobo Brazil, who's won before, but he, Ron is the first recognized African-American champion in wrestling history.
And Brandi, right now on screen,
accomplishment.
On screen, I have the actual slam on Vader that won him the championship.
Yeah, he does a belly to belly scoop slam, I believe it's called. Yeah. Ron Simmons, who's not the hugest guy in wrestling, is lifting 400 pounds plus and slamming him into the mat to win the title. That is no small feat, ladies and gentlemen.
Not at all. I've got a question from Azan, hashtag ask Brandi. Was it true that it was Bill Watts' idea
to have Ron win the championship?
Yes.
Yes. Cowboy Bill Watts was an absolute fan of having an African-American babyface champion because he thought it drew money. Watts is famous for saying that his favorite color was green. So, yeah. That wasn't always the most popular idea in the South, but, at this point, Watts is in charge, and that's the way he wanted things to go. Another thing, unfortunately, to point out at this time, during Ron's reign as champion, he wasn't necessarily treated like other champions necessarily would have been. He didn't necessarily get booked at the end of the card, the showstopper, the show closer, like your Hogan would have been, or your Stone Cold later in the 90s. The opponents maybe necessarily that he should have. He wasn't necessarily facing Sting. He wasn't necessarily facing Luger, who they were trying to kind of promote as the WCW's Hogan at the time. He was facing people like Barbarian, like Cactus Jack, which I'm not opposed to. Give me a Ron Simmons Cactus Jack match any day of the week. I'm happy. But his booking could have been better.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just want to say, as a young, black boy growing up in the South, seeing him as champion meant the world to me.
Yes.
There were two guys growing up for me that were my absolute favorites, that were my idols. That was JYD, Junkyard Dog, and that was Ron Simmons. Those two guys for me were my absolute. They were idols. They were my idols, and I have to say that once I eventually broke into the business, I wanted to be like those guys. I wanted to have, I wanted to bring to the table what they brought to the table. So yeah, I just had to say that while we're talking about it, because Ron Simmons to me, huge figure in my life. So
some other of his opponents during this time would have been Oz, who would later become Diesel, and Kevin Nash, the Diamond Stud, who we would know later as Scott Hall. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
He would drop the championship back to Vader, and the rest of his career in WCW would really go downhill from there, unfortunately. He would go back down to the mid card and pretty much stay there until the end. His contract would run out and remain in WCW for a short time under no contract. And then he would show up in ECW for a little bit. Paul Heyman reportedly wanted to make him a cornerstone of the ECW company, but the money was just not there for him. And so he makes his way to New York to WWE after working for Coca-Cola for a short period of time outside of Atlanta. Bruce Pritchard convinces him to come have a talk with WWE. And that's when Farouk Assad is first born. If you remember, in the beginning, it was not just Farouk. His name was Farouk Assad. And Ron Simmons said that, at first he thought this was going to be kind of cool. On paper, it was a cool idea. He thought this was going to be a cool gladiator kind of deal, kind of a Roman throwback, like, one of those old movies, a gladiator look from an old movie. And on paper, it was really cool. He was all pumped up. He thought he could really make something out of this. He said, and then they send him to the guy's house to do the costume. And they bring out leather. And he says, what's this for? And he goes, oh, this is what your helmet's going to be made out of. And Ron is like, what? And he goes, well, I can make the best out of this. And so he tries to. Why they have a helmet made out of leather and painted blue, I don't know. And why they put Sonny with him, I don't know. But if it's a Roman gladiator gimmick, I would imagine, kind of like Gladiator the movie, with Russell
Mhm.
Crowe. And then wouldn't you want to dress Sunny up like a gladiator chick too, instead of her just running around acting like Sunny does? But anyway, this is
You know
Vince's
what? You know
this is
what?
Vince's world.
Brandy, I imagine when he saw that leather helmet, I can just imagine him saying this. Damn.
Yes, absolutely. So he
Azan is asking you, he's saying, was it to get racial heat, that gimmick?
no, no, it was supposed to be legitimately a gladiator gimmick. Um, it was supposed to be, honestly, from what I've read and researched, a legitimate gimmick. At the time, they had his name, Farouk Assad. They also had Ahmed Johnson. They were trying to have wrestlers have names that were more racially relevant at the time and try to get away from more of the occupational gimmicks that they had in the past, like Duke the Dumpster Drosy and so on. They wanted to try to be a little bit more serious, I think. Um, and Farouk Assad just did not turn out the way they wanted it to. Eventually, a few months down the road, the Gladiator gimmick is dropped. His name is dropped to just Farouk, um, and eventually he forms the Nation of Domination. Now, the Nation of Domination is supposedly um, based upon the Black Panther Party, that kind of movement. And supposedly Farouk is loosely based on kind of a Malcolm X kind of character at that point.
Mm.
And so his big rival during this time is Ahmed Johnson. And there was legitimate heat between these two backstage. Ahmed is on fire uh, at this point during his career, but he injures Ron during a match. And when Ron comes back, he tells everybody, he goes, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. And so his first match back is with Ahmed Johnson, and he effectively ends Ahmed Johnson's career.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
But nobody had time for Ahmed. He had a bad attitude, wasn't liked in the locker room, didn't want to do business. So that pretty much ended that very, very heated in the ring and outside of the ring feud between Ron Simmons and Ahmed Johnson.
Brandy, I've got a quick question for you from Azan here, which is an interesting question, but given the kind of the motivation, the idea behind the nation, this cross between Black Panther Party and Nation of Islam, Azan says, do you think it was a good idea to have white members of the nation?
I don't know. I don't know. I think back on it, being a teenager watching it at the time, I don't know that I thought about it that much at the time. I don't know that what the target audiences thought of it at the time. I don't know. I think they came across very well as a heel faction, which is what they were supposed to do. I think they made you think, which is what they were supposed to do. So in those regards, I think they did their jobs well. If you think about the main job of a faction, which is to create, one or two big stars, which is what the Nation of Domination did, then they absolutely did their job. Because the Nation of Domination produced the biggest star in wrestling history, The Rock. I mean, if you talk about, a faction producing the biggest draw in wrestling history, you got it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to take him from Rocky Maivia, and how that started out, like, just the Nation was so cool and edgy.
Yeah.
So for them to take this, basically white meat baby face that they were trying to push, that the fans just absolutely hated. People were chanting "Die Rocky Die." To take him from that to what he eventually became, I'm going to ask you this question: how much influence did Ron Simmons, you feel, have on that maturation and that explosion?
Oh, huge. He would talk to The Rock and say before a match, go out there and know your role. And so The Rock kind of took that phrase from him and used it. And for Rock's springboard to be, to have this feud with Farouk to fight for the head of the Nation of Domination, that was The Rock's huge springboard. And after that, he really kind of propelled from that and became The Rock.
Yeah.
Fighting with Farouk for the control of Nation of Domination.
I've got another Nation question here from James Chadwick. He says, do you think the Nation of Domination will work in today's climate of the wrestling business? That's a good question.
No.
I don't think so either.
No, I think the Attitude Era got away with things that absolutely we could not get away with today.
Yeah.
No, some of the stuff that happened between them and DX and happened between Nation of Domination and Los Boricuas, or once Farouk and JBL became the acolytes and stuff, and went on to to become the evil faction with the Undertaker, all of that. No, and had those feuds. No, I think it would be much too divisive today.
Yeah. I mean, I think the closest that you'll ever come to that was the Hurt Business of recent memory. And
Yes.
even with them, they didn't go as much into they couldn't go as much into some of the areas that the Nation did. So yeah, I think that's probably the closest that we'll get to a faction that was built like the Nation.
Yeah, and maybe if they take Roman's family more forward, which I hope they will.
Yeah.
If they add more members to it,
Yeah.
Maybe that way. But yeah, no, I certainly don't think. But so Farouk is essentially tossed out of the Nation. They put him with JBL. They become the acolytes. They start using all these strange symbols. By the way, they just put symbols on themselves. They didn't know what they meant. They didn't have a secret meaning. They just made them up, guys. So no hopes in that they had secret, crazy, cultic meanings. They stayed with the Undertaker as part of his Ministry of Darkness until the Undertaker gets an injury, I believe in '99. And then they still remain the acolytes. And they do a really good job as they win the tag belts. By the way, the only belt that Ron Simmons gets in the WWE, although he is in the Intercontinental picture quite a few times, the only belt he has in the WWE is the tag belt, which is a huge travesty. I think Vince lost a huge opportunity by not having Ron Simmons as his champion at least once.
I so agree with that, because I feel like he definitely should have been champion. It, like you said, at least once, if not multiple times. Just the dude was talented and he was over. And
Absolutely.
let's see here. We're getting some questions
He fought.
coming in.
Let me just say this: he fought
Okay.
for the title against the Undertaker one time, and can you imagine how different things might have been if he had won against the Undertaker? I believe it was in '97 or '98. How different that landscape might have been.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, huge. It would have been huge. Got a couple questions here. Azan saying, let's see here. He said it's funny how Don Callis was a part of Ron and now he's a part of Kenny. Yeah, which that was interesting. I had to go back and really remember that Callis was part of that.
He was
Johnny Bates. Yep. Yep. Johnny Bates saying, do you think the higher power should have been revealed as Kimber the Goat Lee? Of course, he loves Kimberly, so everything should have been. You know what, Bates? Do you think she should have been the gobbledygooker? I hope not, Bates. I hope not, Bates.
Oh my goodness.
Melinda Ford is saying Ron is super nice.
He is. Yes, he is. How much time do we have left, Jeff?
We got about 16 minutes. I was going to open the floor for some more questions at about the 6:50 mark. So
okay,
do what you need to do.
I got to get to the APA, you guys. Okay, so JBL and Ron, they're still wrestling as the Acolytes, but how the APA comes about is it's JBL's birthday one year, okay, and so Vince, sees him and Ron kind of celebrating with the guys and joking around and playing cards and having a few beers and shots, just goofing off. And so reportedly the next day he goes to JBL. He goes, I want you guys to do this for real on camera. And reportedly that's how the Acolyte Protection Agency was born. And so creative kind of got together and they figured out, okay, this is how we're going to do your office. And we just want you guys to sit back here and play cards and drink beer and have fun. And so the gimmick was this, wrestlers would come to them and pretend like they needed to buy protection. And so that's what they got to do. And this is where you really come closest to seeing who Ron Simmons and JBL really are with the Acolyte Protection Agency, because they're making jokes, they're sitting around, they're playing cards, they're having a good time, they're drinking beer, and this is not kayfabe beer. This is shoot beer, So they're like Stone Cold. This is shoot beer, So they're having a good time, and they really had a good time because they're friends in real life. They're still best friends to this day, and they both have said that was some of the best times of their life. And if you guys haven't seen some of those matches, some of those vignettes, go back and look at it on the network. There's the story of the APA. Go and look at that. It's fantastic. There's a famous match where it's the APA and it's a barroom brawl.
Oh gosh, I remember this.
It is hilarious. If you go look up, I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. Look up the APA barroom brawl. It's fantastic. And JBL has said that a lot of that was legit. People were really breaking chairs. People were really laying it in. It was not. It it was not working punches. Those were shoot punches.
Speaking of shoot punches, I've got to ask you this, and you know where I'm going. You know where I'm going with this.
Uh-oh.
Talk a little bit about the match between them and Public Enemy.
Well, they were trying to teach them a little bit of a lesson, I think. Public Enemy, I don't think they have the best reputation in the world, and I think they were trying to teach a little bit of a lesson.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how those guys beat the hell out of them, and then I think a month or so, maybe even less than that, they were gone. They were out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean I remember seeing that match live on television, I believe. I think I'm remembering that right. I just remember seeing that match and thinking, oh my God, like these guys are beating the absolute hell out of these.
They did.
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah.
I mean, they stomped a mud hole in them.
Yeah. Yep, they sure did. So
I have to share one of my favorite APA memories is the one where they go to the APA office and Mae Young's back there playing poker with them.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there's always, shut the door. They're always telling people, shut the door.
Shut the door, yep. Oh, gosh. Such good memories.
But I would be remiss if we didn't talk about how Ron ended up leaving the company. There's rumors out there. I don't deal too much in rumor and innuendo. I'm just gonna try to think that it was time for him to go on his way. There's rumors out there that it had to do with he got in a fight with Big Show. Yes, there was an altercation between him and Big Show, but not much came from it. There are rumors that it had to do with steroids. That hasn't been confirmed. But they did break up the APA because they wanted JBL to have his singles push, and JBL would not have been the champion that he was if they had not done that. But his last appearance on SmackDown, that is Ron Simmons, is also the same day that he was fired.
Yep.
So he would continue to make appearances here and there for WWE throughout the 2000s. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2012. APA was also inducted. So Ron Simmons is still very much a friend of the company, still very much a friend of JBL's, and is still much in the hearts of his fans worldwide.
Absolutely. And we Joe has joined us. What's up, Joe? Thank you for joining us in the chat.
Hello, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness. I feel like, and Brandi, as we kind of bring this to a close, I feel like historically speaking, Ron Simmons still doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Would you agree with that statement?
I absolutely agree with that. And I want to say this on the race issue too as well. In an interview with him I listened to this week doing research for the show, somebody asked him, did he feel the same racial issues in WWE as he did with WCW? And he said, H no. He said he
Hell
felt,
no.
yeah, he said he felt accepted. He didn't feel, inferior, or the locker room issues in New York that he felt in WCW. So I think no matter what people say about Vince, no matter what people say about whomever um, in that organization, that statement said a lot.
Yeah. Got a couple questions here. This one from James Chadwick. If you could handpick any wrestler from any company for Ron to manage, who would it be?
Malachi Black.
Ooh. Okay. I like where you're going with that. The Coog is asking if Ron does come back to pro wrestling, where does he go if you had to guess? So if he's in an advisory role or a manager role, where would you think he'd go to?
He's still very loyal to WWE, as is JBL. Since they're still best friends, I think Ron could be a great trainer. I think he could be a great booker. Um, so yeah, I could see him in either one of those roles.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I'll say this, I would love to see him with Big E.
Yes, yes.
Just a
Xavier as well.
Yep. I would love to see him, like if they ever did something with the New Day where they were all back together and they wanted to maybe turn them heel and have Ron kind of be that voice that's like, you guys need to get your crap together and stop
Right.
being so silly or something like that. I'd love to see him in that kind of role.
But it's the same question you have to ask when putting the title on somebody. Do they need it?
Right.
Yeah.
Which they don't, because they can all talk. So
Yeah.
Azan saying, have you ever watched the Teddy Long wedding where Doom was back together?
No, I have not.
Okay. Johnny Bates, of course, another Kimberly question. What's better? It should have been me. It should have been me. Or it should have been Lee.
I'm not familiar with Kimberly. Okay, I gotta catch up. Give me
We
a
got
break, bro.
We gotta get Brandi into Impact. She would love it, honestly. Because right now, Brandi, I gotta say, they're on fire right now. They've got New Japan included. They've got AEW included.
I've heard.
Yeah, it's on fire. We gotta get you to check it out. Yeah, we gotta get you to check it out.
By the way, I don't know
uh-huh.
if any of you are interested, but Jeff Jarrett's podcast, he's going through and talking about the creation of Impact and the creation of TNA. If any of you are interested, it's really cool.
I'm going to check that out because I am definitely interested in that.
Go back and listen to about the last 4 or 5 episodes.
Okay.
It's really interesting.
James Chadwick says, how about Ron with Bronson Reed? I would like that.
I don't know who that is.
He was just the NXT North American champ.
Okay.
Reports and rumors are that he's moving up to Raw or SmackDown at some point soon. Big guy. I mean, think like Tugboat or somebody like that. That kind of big.
What about Ron with Keith Lee?
Now you see, I was just about to say that.
Jeff, it's why we work so well together, my friend.
Yes. And not even that Keith Lee needs a mouthpiece, because Keith is great on the mic, but just to have somebody like Ron in his corner
absolutely
would be tremendous. I mean, that would be tremendous.
Absolutely.
Azan saying, should Ron have beaten Flair in '87 for the World Championship?
No. He wasn't ready. You have
That's
to be at the tip top of your game to beat somebody like Flair in that era.
yeah, especially 87 when honestly Flair was smoking at that point. I mean, he was on fire, and I wish that Ron would have had a couple more championship reigns. Not tag team, but definitely singles championship.
He deserved to have the IC title and move up
Mm-hmm.
to the heavyweight title in WWE. He
I
absolutely did.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. All right, so we're at 6:57 right now. We're going to wrap this thing up, but Brandi, before we do that, any final thoughts on Ron or anything you want to say to the people that have joined us tonight, and we'll start to kind of wrap up the show.
Thank you so much for your time tonight, guys. It's a pleasure to be back. You don't know how much I've missed you. From my heart, I want to thank you for your support through the past months this year, battling COVID again. And guys, the surgery I've had, the recovery, my heart and my love goes out to you guys. My thanks goes out to you guys. Let us know who you want us to talk about. As you guys, some of you know, I can't do Twitter, but it doesn't work with my voice software. Send message on Facebook. Be like, hey, Brandi, let's talk about so-and-so. Or send it through Jeff or Joe, and, maybe they'll let me know. But who else do you guys want to hear about? Before SummerSlam, I'd love to do an episode on the first SummerSlam. I'd love to do a full show on an Ask Brandi if you guys want to. But let me know what else you want to hear about. I'd love to do a Yokozuna episode. I'd love to do a Vader episode. Who else would you guys like to hear about?
And for the love of all things holy, leave it in the comments of this video too. Like we keep asking for engagement. Of course, Johnny Bates just said Kimberly.
It's a classic wrestling show, brother.
But leave it in the comments. Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. If you have Facebook, put it in the Insiders Pro Wrestling group there. Let us know who you want to see. And honestly, if it's someone that you're not as familiar with, that's what makes Hot Tag so special, is that if you're a younger fan and let's say you just haven't heard a lot about Ron Simmons, well, this is a great episode for you. So now it's a good launching point for you to be able to go back and do some research about Ron Simmons. So yeah, let us know for sure. Brandi, thank you so much. I look forward to doing this again next week, hopefully. So we can, that's a good one too. Iron Sheik. Are we talking Sheiky baby? That's right. That's exactly what Bates just said. Sheiky baby. Jason Stauffer saying Jerry the King Lawler. Melinda Ford saying Dusty, which would be great. I'd love to do it.
That would be like a 4-parter.
Dusty Road, baby, Dusty Road. Hard time.
Hard times.
James Chadwick saying China.
30 years.
30 years. Son of a plumber. James Chadwick saying China would be great. So
I want to do her so bad.
Yeah.
You guys, if you haven't read her book, do so. It's fantastic.
Let's see here. James Grant saying Dusty as well. Mr. Smooth saying Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Jason P saying The Rock. So listen, keep them coming. After this video ends, if you want to put some more some more ideas out there, we're going to take them all. Just let us know. Also, Johnny Bates saying Jeff Hardy. He mentioned that earlier. I'd love to go back and do the early days of the Hardys at some point, and even Jeff's singles run as champion. But guys, wow, thank you so much for the engagement, for showing up. Brandi, thank you. Melinda Ford saying Rick Rude, keep them coming. I'd love to do one on Rick Rude too.
Yes.
So
Mr.
keep them coming.
Perfect. I'm gonna
Yes.
do a Mr. Perfect.
Yes.
Jeff, my partner, thank you.
Hey, thank you. And I'm glad that you're back. Hope you start to feel better soon after this latest bout. And folks, if you'd like to join us, we're going to be doing SmackDown in about 48 minutes. So come back at 7:50, doing a special time tonight, 7:50. If Brandi is up to it, she may join us for that for a little bit. Just depending on how she's feeling. What's up, Chad Schrader? So yeah, thank you guys for joining us. You see our schedule on the screen there.
I don't see nothing.
Listen. I was about to say all of you see the screen except for Brandi. And if you're new here, first off, thank you for joining us. For everyone that is a regular, please hit that like button. Give us a thumbs up. And if you're new, please consider subscribing and hit that post notification bell, because you never know when we're going to go live. You never know when we're going to have new stuff out there. So come and join us. Wow, this was fun. Brandi, hopefully we'll do this again next week.
Yep.
And guys, everyone that joined us, we will see you for our next stream. Hopefully you can join us for SmackDown tonight. But if not, we have our weekly weekly wrestling wrap-up show. It's a lot of W's, a lot of alliteration. So thank you all for joining us. And if you're going to join us for SmackDown, we'll see you shortly. And if not, hopefully we see you the next time. Take care.